Welcome, Christian educators. My name is George Olson, and I am Ministry Representative for School of Tomorrow Asia and a part of curriculum development for Accelerated College of the Bible International. I'm glad to present today a session on character and corrections, scoring violations. We will discuss the purpose and value of scoring, the specifics of scoring, and the promotion of good scoring. I hope and pray that this session is a blessing to you and your school staff. Let's face it, scoring is boring. So what can we do about it? Well, first of all, we must understand the full purpose of and value of scoring. Now, do you believe in it? Well, in 2009, John Hattie wrote about feedback and the importance of immediate feedback for the student in order to really acquire the learning of the knowledge and the application of that knowledge. And in fact, I visited a conventional school here a couple of years ago. It happened to be a foreign language school. The teacher there had work piled up that she had not scored for more than a month. Now, what do you suppose that does as far as language acquisition? Well, it puts those students at a real disadvantage. For that month, they did not know whether they had acquired anything or whether they hadn't, and whether they would even be able to speak the language. Well, actually, that just really demonstrates the importance of that initial, immediate feedback that's necessary. And the scoring is so important. Now, for character training with the A.C.E. system, we find that the character is built into all of the processes of the program. However, scoring is one of the most important because there's nobody looking over their shoulder while they do the scoring, and they must be honest with themselves. And so this is a real key in character training as far as their spiritual life is concerned. And so with the spiritual training, you see everything becomes a spiritual point. And so this is another aspect of the program that we must remember with the A.C.E. program. What does that stand for? Accelerated Christian Education. So what is the importance of the spiritual? Everything in our lives should be centered on that spiritual application. Now, the specifics of scoring. First of all, what do scoring violations represent? First of all, we must look at the student. Now, there are two things that we must consider. Is there a scoring violation? Yes. What is the reason for that scoring violation? Is it purposeful, accidental? Does it concern a weakness or other problems? And so we must look at the student individually when considering a scoring violation. Is it a lack of comprehension? Remember, our growth as far as knowledge and acquisition and application is so essential there. Yes, we must need knowledge, but we must need comprehension to understand that knowledge. When back in the 60s, I went from one school to the other and was taking over the math program. Well, the principal wanted me to go to, in California, called the new math at that time. He said, now all these students below you are in this one textbook with the new math. And so you need to switch over to that new math. Well, I had noticed that the students did not have the knowledge that they needed. And if they did have the knowledge, they didn't have the understanding of comprehension. So I gave all the students a little test that I made up to diagnose each student. Now, this was middle school, and at that time, I checked on the one unit digit, two unit digits, and so on for addition, multiplication, subtraction, division. There was not a single 7th level student that could do long division. So I showed the principal this, and he said, well, yes. All right, Mr. Olson, you can teach your math. Well, I found an individualized program. It did not have all the good bells and whistles that A.C.E. has, but it was individualized. And with that program, these students then went back to where they had understanding and built from there. And so after running the program for a little while, a school board member, the president of the school board, came to visit our school, and I saw him out in the corridor. And so I walked out of my classroom and talked with him for a few minutes. And then I said, "Now, Frank, you know I've been out here for a few minutes. What kind of chaos do you think my classroom is in?" And his jaw just dropped. And he knew that it just must be real chaos. But we walked in the room. Every student was on task. They were either working at their desks. They did not have offices, but they were working at their desks or up at the scoring station scoring individually. Every one of those students in that first year developed, some of them over 4 years in their progress. And not only that, but at that time, a university about 80 miles south of us gave they had a test for prizes and all for all the students for about 400 miles to the south of us, clear up to where we were. And in that first year, my students placed in that tournament. And the second year they placed, and the third year they placed. And I was there for 7 years, and every year we placed not in the top 10%, but in the top 10 students for those thousands of students that went through that math tournament. And so this gives you an idea of, we must have knowledge, but then we must have comprehension. And once the student comprehends, then they can make application. Now, so goal pressures. Now, this is one thing that students will fall into a trap. Oh, they're so far behind with the goals. Now, and so they will sometimes try to fudge a little bit and just cheat on their scoring. So now, some will have excessive fear of failure, and will desire to please everybody, but they don't want to make any red X's. And so that's another thing that you must get them over and have them realize that what this is a symbol to let them realize that there's a gap in their learning that they need to check up on and get it squared around so that there isn't a red X anymore. And under time pressure, well, what can we do? Oh boy, it's almost lunchtime, so we've got to get this scored quickly and get off to lunch. So we must think a little bit about, well, what can we do to counteract that? And then, of course, the level of difficulty. Now, one of the things, too, that we must really consider is when the students are moving through their paces, to not try to get them we have to work so that they don't get off balance with their subjects and keep them on a level that's relatively even in all subjects, because some students will want to work on one pace and get it all done and then fall behind in the others. And so that will put extra pressure on them, especially when they hit about fifth level. And at fifth level, things begin to change with increased learning ability and difficulty. And so we must keep that in mind and help them. We must stand in the gap for the students to help guide them to a proper learning speed, to keep up, but not to get in a place where they're suddenly going to hit a barrier. All right, and sin and character weakness. Well, this is one thing that we must remember, that all of our students are human beings, and they will have areas of their character that are weaknesses. And we must help to guide them, working with them, recognizing that we're there to help them get through these temptations that they will have to skip on the scoring situation. Carelessness and laziness. We must look and see, now, is their scoring violation a result of carelessness or of laziness? And so with carelessness, that's something that we can help them to correct if we help them to establish proper procedures and proper ways of following through on this process of scoring. Self-confidence and pride. Some just really get this idea that, oh, they have to make themselves appear as the best. Well, that's not it. We must remember that all of us have limits, and all of us need help in certain areas. And so this is really important for us to look at. Now, or is it a matter of just flat out cheating, where they will try to memorize answers, and then of course they'll forget it, and they'll skip procedures, and they are not really scoring. And so these are there are deep underlying issues also, just deceitfulness and abuse. And so this is so important for us to, first of all, try to figure out what it is that's causing the scoring violations. Now, how do we detect these scoring violations? Well, in order to detect the scoring violations, we have to really be careful especially when we're quizzing students for a checkup or self-test. Are they truly ready to take a checkup or a self-test? So when we question them, we must really know what we're asking them and know the response that they give and see how it actually applies to the material itself, or whether it's just trying to apply an answer that they've looked at the score key in. And so this is something that we must be very, very careful with in order to guide those students. Remember, the supervisors and monitors have a chore to really and truly stand in the gap for the student to help them through. Now, not just try to teach them, but to try to guide them by asking the right questions, by really quizzing them properly to see if they are prepared. And so spot checks, this is another thing. And so the goal check is really important for this. So spot check the PACEs to see, are those answers correct, or can you see erasures and write-ins or something? And so this is the same thing that we must really examine. If we don't repeatedly examine and consciously evaluate the look on that PACE to see how it's working. Now, another major things, you'll have students that it looks like their scoring has all been right, and their self-test, they've gotten 100% on self-test, and then they'll fail a test. Why would they fail a test if everything else is 100% correct? So that's a key, really an important key. So then, if that is the case, then you must take that PACE. You must go over that PACE. You must see exactly what's happening there. And then you will usually find out multiple scoring violations. Now, it's easy for supervisors to not interpret the difference between punishment and discipline. Remember, discipline is establishing a manner of living. Punishment is a matter of correction. But if we concentrate on only the punishment, then we wind up with students that only remember the punishment, and they have no idea what discipline really is. So with this, we must guide those students to say, all right, now look, we need to establish habits, proper habits, because the proper habits then give us a discipline to follow for the rest of our life. And so this is extremely important, that we guide them so that they score properly and they get all the benefits of the scoring and not just build up punishments. All right, and so now, how do we communicate with parents about scoring violations? Well, first of all, graciously. What does that mean? Well, we must go ahead and recognize that there is this problem, but we must do that in such a way that the parents understand that we're not there to punish the student. We're there to help the student score properly so that he can make sufficient gains in the right direction. And so we must help them to understand, and not understand violations, but understand what's needed for the corrections and the proper education. All right. Quantity and frequency should be tracked and clearly recorded on the global, on the gold check report. And this is so important that that gold check report record all this so that there's a pattern to look at. And so the parent will be helped to understand exactly what's going on and can be enlisted to help in the difficult cases. And so the school and the family work together to promote the good scoring and to realize the foundations of scoring and understand the value of scoring and to help your monitor to get it too. We've got to get the monitors and the supervisors really on track and the parents. So we must train students to score. And this is it. Sometimes we'll have to go up with them and just say, all right, now let's review this. One finger on the pace, one finger on the score key, and we follow through. Is this exactly like this? No, it's not. Okay. So now you see, then they register that in their brain. This helps train the child. And you see, there are different aspects to our acquisition of knowledge, and one of those is kinesthetic. When we move our bodies in a certain manner, that helps us to remember things. And so this is important to make sure that we include all the elements of learning that we can to ensure the proper learning for the student. So we must train the students in the mental processes of scoring and self-correcting in order for them to make proper progress. Now, the power of feedback is like a mirror into your mind. Why did I get this wrong? Well, was it because of a distraction? Was it because of mental process? Was it because of difference in steps, accuracy, comprehension of concepts, or whatever? And so this is something that we have to look at as managers of the school system. Where is the scoring station? Is it in a place that's free of distraction, or at least to limited distraction? And what happens there now is Johnny scoring, and suddenly you see Sammy getting up and needing to score as well, and then you see the two of them actually wind up distracting each other. Is it possible that for some students you will need to have them close at hand to a monitor or a supervisor while they are scoring, and that helps them keep their mind on what they're doing. Now, we need to frequently remind students why scoring helps them and make them realize that this is to help them build proper habits. As they build the habits, then that will make it easier all the way around for them. Now, real learning through feedback. This is so important that we get this across to the students. It's the feedback from the scoring that helps them really acquire that knowledge. Once the knowledge is acquired, then we have to make sure that there is understanding, and that feedback helps with that understanding. And only then can we actually make proper application. Now, self-determination. And the student must realize, I can beat my laziness, and I can, even though I have a dislike for something, I can beat that. Now, and of course, a real key that we must get across to students. Do we want to please God? Yes, every student does. And being honest and thorough in scoring and establishing our self-control is what is really pleasing to God. Now, we need to apologize for staff. And what do you mean? Well, for scoring violations. A staff can get overzealous about scoring violations, about establishing this is a scoring violation. Well, instead of going with a student and saying, all right, oh, Johnny, no, you've gotten 2 demerits already. Let's get you through this day without getting any more. So let's make sure that we don't have any scoring violations. So let's score carefully. And you see what that will do then is say, okay, this supervisor is not just after me, but this supervisor is here to help me. and to help me establish those good practices. So this is so, so important for us to look at. Looking at school system and issues. First of all, what are some things that we can do? Well, how about for those that get in a hurry at lunchtime and just start marking answers? Well, we can just close down the scoring station for 5 minutes early before breaks or lunch. And by doing that, then they're not hurrying through. We know when that time is. We cut off that time, and they can pick up after break or after lunch and go on. And so use the monitor. Now, some will have to go with the student in their scoring if they're a very challenging student for a short time to help them retrain themselves. Now, I've done that with students, and some of these were middle grade students. One of them just even happened to be a ninth level student. And I had to draw him back and say, all right, now listen, we're going to have to go over that scoring procedure again, and we're going to do that. And so for a while here, we're going to rescore. We're going to be right alongside of you to make sure you're following that process. And when you do, you're going to find out that, hey, this is a profitable way to do it. And so this is something then that the student realizes that you're helping them. You're helping the student. You're not just punishing the student. So as we think about helping the students score difficult pages, then this again, the student will realize that you're there to help them and not to just punish them. Make sure that you are thorough in scoring, but give the benefit of the doubt when necessary. And of course, this is with cursive writing formation and things like that. Well, if you look at people that have been well established with cursive, you'll see that we all have little differences in our signatures. That's why signatures can be so easy to trace through to different people. And so we must have that in mind too as we have our students trained. Yes, they will have the accuracy, but we don't become nitpicky so badly that it hinders the student. All right, so personal issues. Take time to investigate real reasons. Now, what real reasons? Is it we need to look at distractions? Can we eliminate distractions? For the monitor accompanies the students while scoring. Sometimes we have to do that. There's just no other way. Character training. And here is a real key. Pray with your students together and individually for the challenging students. Yes, we can pray for a group getting ready to test, 3 or 4 of them at a time, but then those really difficult students, you see, when you pray individually with them, that becomes personal with them. And consequently, I remember when I had colon surgery, and I was in the hospital, and one student, and he had some difficulties with attention and everything in the learning center, but he came to visit with me. And I had prayed with him a number of times. And guess what? Sam came and prayed with and for me while I was there recovering from having half my colon removed because of colon cancer. You see, this is what we build with our students. We must build that confidence, that trust back and forth, so that they understand that, hey, you know what? We are on the same wavelength, and we are here to help each other, and that's what we want. When I get back to my hometown, I understand this young man's going to come visit his parents in our hometown, and he's going to come visit me, and we're going to spend some time together. Now he's in the military now, and he's taking a leave, and even now, see, he remembers the contact and the connection that we had. Now this is really character testing. And so the scoring station is just that, it's character testing. And as we develop that proper scoring attitude, we see more and more character being developed. And so have an award for the least zero scoring violation or the zero scoring violations in a day or a week or a month. And this too is important. Then they see an advantage. That's another award that I can work toward, instead of getting more and more scoring violations. So the marking methods. And so you can use green X's, scoring violations count at the top of the page for students to find and correct. So you can total those up, and as they see fewer and fewer of those, then that's good. Then they can correct those. Scoring violation count on. Scoring violations can be on the cover. Well, one scoring violation equals one demerit. Well, that's normally, but may be temporarily adjusted for specific students or age groups. Once you get a student that is in a bad habit of getting multiple scoring violations, then you must reevaluate. First of all, what's the cause of that? What's the cause of the violation? And how can it be corrected? And so you may have to just stop and say, okay, now, Johnny, we're not counting any scoring violations now, and we're going to set up a plan so you get over this and get out of having any scoring violations. And we're going to work together to do that. So we're going to start right now. We're going to do some retraining. We're going to reconnect here without any kind of judgment. We know that you've had scoring violations, and now you and I are going to work together to get out of that habit and get on the right habit of no scoring violations. And so then for a time, we're going to go over this together, and we're going to relearn the scoring process, and we're going to relearn the value of scoring properly. And so with this, then, once again, you're building a connectivity with the student. You're building growth in character, and you're building the acquisition of true learning. You're building the ability to apply that learning, and you're building a student that's going to have success in his learning. So with that, I'd like to close in prayer. Oh, Father, we just thank you so much. And Father, we do just ask for you as we take these thoughts in mind. And Father, that we may establish in our learning center the process of not just punishing, but the process of establishing discipline, guiding to establish habits in our lives and the students' lives to make them successful learners and successful in their character building and successful in their lives for you. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.